The dusty boardwalk of Clifton, Arizona, creaked beneath Ryder Thompson's boots as he stood outside the general store, watching the distant ribbon of the Gila River shimmer in the brutal July heat of 1881, wondering if the woman on that approaching riverboat would be another disappointment or his last hope of saving the ranch. He had placed the advertisement 3 months ago, describing his need for a capable housekeeper and cook who could handle the isolation of ranch life, offering fair wages and separate quarters. The responses had been scarce, and the 2 women who had made the journey before had taken one look at the remoteness of his property and caught the next boat back downriver. Ryder could not afford another failure. The ranch stretched across 3,000 acres of unforgiving Arizona territory, and managing it alone while trying to maintain even basic meals and a livable home had worn him down to the bone. At 30 years old, Ryder had inherited the Thompson ranch from his father 2 years prior, after consumption had taken both his parents within months of each other. His younger sister had married and moved to San Francisco, leaving him the sole keeper of their family legacy. The cattle operation required constant attention, the buildings needed repairs, and the administrative work piled higher each week. He needed help, plain and simple, though admitting it had taken longer than his pride preferred. The riverboat's whistle cut through the afternoon air, sharp and clear. Ryder straightened his shoulders, brushed the worst of the dust from his worn denim pants, and adjusted his hat. His sun-bronzed face reflected in the store window showed the weariness of too many 18-hour days, but his dark eyes still held determination. Whatever happened, he would face it with the same stubborn resolve that had kept the ranch running this long. The boat docked with practiced efficiency, and passengers began disembarking. Ryder scanned the crowd, looking for a woman traveling alone, someone who matched the neat handwriting in the letter he had received 2 weeks ago. Martha Parker had written that she was 24 years old, experienced in household management, and willing to relocate for suitable employment. Her references had been impressive, though he had no way to verify them at this distance. Her letter had been different from the others, more thoughtful somehow, with an underlying current of quiet desperation that matched his own. Then he saw her. She stood at the top of the gangplank, one gloved hand gripping a worn carpet bag, the other pressed protectively against her midsection. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back severely beneath a simple bonnet, and her travel-stained dress of deep blue calico spoke of long days on the river. But it was her face that caught his attention, beautiful in a refined way that seemed out of place in this rough territory, with delicate features that held an expression of carefully controlled anxiety. Her gray eyes swept the dock with the wariness of a hunted creature seeking sanctuary. Ryder stepped forward, removing his hat. "Miss Parker," she turned toward him, those gray eyes assessing him in a single, thorough glance. For a moment he thought she might bolt back onto the boat. Then something shifted in her expression, a decision made, and she descended the gangplank with surprising grace despite the obvious exhaustion in her movements. "Mr. Thompson." Her voice was softer than he expected, cultured, with Eastern inflections that immediately marked her as far from home. "Yes, madam. Welcome to Clifton." He reached for her bag, but she clutched it tighter, her knuckles whitening. "I can manage it, thank you." Ryder withdrew his hand, noting the slight tremor in her fingers. "The wagon's just over here. It's about an hour's ride to the ranch. If you need anything from the store before we head out, now would be the time. I have what I need." Her words were clipped, efficient, but he heard the underlying tension. They walked to the wagon in silence, drawing curious looks from the townspeople. Clifton was a mining town, rough around the edges, with more saloons than churches and a population that ebbed and flowed with the success of the copper mines. Respectable women were rare enough to attract attention, and a stranger arriving alone would fuel gossip for weeks. Ryder helped her onto the wagon seat, noting how she winced as she settled herself. The journey must have been harder than he had imagined. The riverboat route from anywhere civilized was grueling, and she looked as though she had traveled much farther than that. As they left town behind, following the rutted road that led into the high desert country, Ryder attempted conversation. "The ranch is isolated. I will not lie about that. The nearest neighbor is 5 miles south, and town is our closest settlement. But the house is solid, built by my grandfather in '59. You will have your own room off the kitchen, private and secure." "That sounds acceptable." She kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, her posture rigid. "The work is substantial. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, occasional help with the chickens and the kitchen garden. I can handle the heavier chores, but keeping up with everything alone has proven difficult." "I understand the requirements, Mr. Thompson. Your advertisement was quite clear." Her formality created a wall between them, but Ryder respected it. Whatever had driven her to answer his advertisement, whatever had brought her to this remote corner of Arizona territory, was her business. He needed a housekeeper, nothing more. The loneliness that sometimes gripped him on cold nights was simply part of life out here. The landscape shifted as they traveled, the river valley giving way to rolling terrain dotted with juniper and scrub oak. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still holding patches of snow despite the summer heat. A hawk circled overhead, riding the thermals with effortless grace. "It is beautiful in a harsh way." Martha spoke so quietly he almost missed it. "It grows on you," Ryder replied. "Or it drives you away. There is not much middle ground." She turned to look at him then, really look at him, and he saw something flicker in those gray eyes. Fear, yes, but also a fierce determination that matched his own. Whatever she was running from, she had chosen this wilderness as her refuge, and she would not leave easily. The ranch came into view as the sun began its descent toward the western peaks. The main house stood 2 stories tall, its adobe walls thick and cool, with a covered porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Outbuildings clustered nearby, including the bunkhouse that currently stood empty, the barn, chicken coop, and various sheds. Cattle dotted the distant pastures, dark shapes against the golden grass. "Home," Ryder said simply. Martha studied the property with an intensity that surprised him. "How many head do you run?" "About 400 right now. We had more before the drought last year." Building the herd back up slowly. "And you manage all of this alone?" "I hire hands when I need them during roundup and branding, but keeping regular help has been difficult. The isolation, you know." She nodded slowly. "I imagine isolation can be a blessing as well as a curse." There was a story there, Ryder thought, but he would not pry. He pulled the wagon up to the house and climbed down, then moved to assist her. This time she accepted his help, her hand trembling in his as she stepped to the ground. Up close, he could see the shadows beneath her eyes, the pallor beneath her tan, the way she moved with careful precision. "Are you unwell, Miss Parker?" "Just tired from the journey." She retrieved her carpetbag before he could reach for it. "Perhaps you could show me to my quarters." "I would like to rest before beginning my duties." "Of course. I do not expect you to start work until you are ready. Tomorrow will be soon enough." He led her through the front door into the main room. The house bore the marks of bachelor living. Dust on the furniture and dishes stacked haphazardly on the dining table, but the basic structure was sound. High ceilings kept the rooms cool, and large windows let in generous light. His mother's touches still remained in the curtains she had sewn. The rug she had woven, the careful arrangement of the furniture. The room off the kitchen had been his sister's before her marriage. It held a narrow bed with a decent mattress, a dresser, a washstand, and a small window that looked out on the kitchen garden. Simple but clean, or it would be once he dusted it. "I will bring in fresh linens," Ryder said, suddenly aware of how inadequate the space seemed. "And water for washing." "It is fine, Mr. Thompson. Better than I expected, honestly." She set down her bag and removed her bonnet, revealing more of that dark blonde hair. Without the severe hat, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Ryder found himself wondering again what had brought her here, what secrets lay behind those carefully guarded eyes. "I will leave you to rest then. There is bread and cheese in the kitchen if you get hungry. Help yourself to anything you need." "Thank you." She turned away, effectively dismissing him, and Ryder took the hint. He spent the next hour tending to the evening chores, his mind wandering to the woman now sleeping, he hoped, in his sister's old room. Something about her stirred protective instincts he thought he had buried with his parents. She seemed so fragile, yet there was steel underneath. Like desert grass that bent in the wind but never broke. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, Ryder sat on the porch with a cup of bitter coffee, listening to the night sounds. Coyotes called in the distance, their voices eerie and wild. An owl hooted from the barn. The cattle settled with low murmurs. All familiar, all part of the rhythm of this life he had chosen, or perhaps that had chosen him. He wondered if Martha would stay, or if the reality of ranch life would send her running like the others. He wondered what she was hiding, because he was certain now that she was hiding something. The way she held that bag, the protective gesture of her hand at her waist, the desperation in her eyes all spoke of secrets. But everyone had secrets out here. That was part of the unspoken code of the West. You did not ask too many questions, did not pry into pasts that people had worked hard to leave behind. You judged a person by their actions, not their history. He would give her a chance to prove herself, and in return, perhaps she would find the sanctuary she so clearly needed. Inside the house, Martha lay on the narrow bed, fully clothed, one hand resting on the swell of her belly. 6 months along, though she had managed to hide it so far with careful corseting and loose clothing. But she could not hide it much longer. Another month, perhaps 2 at most, and it would be obvious to anyone who looked. She had fled St. Louis 3 months ago, leaving behind a life that had crumbled around her like a house built on sand. Her husband, if he could be called that, had died in a gambling dispute before he even knew about the child. The marriage itself had been a scandal, hasty and ill-conceived, undertaken against her family's wishes. When Thomas Parker had been shot dead over a disputed card game, her family had disowned her completely, unwilling to bear the shame of association. Pregnant, widowed, and penniless, Martha had used the last of her savings to flee west, answering advertisements for positions that might offer refuge. Ryder Thompson's posting had stood out because of its remoteness. She had gambled that a lonely rancher would be more concerned with competent help than with the moral failings of his housekeeper, but she had not planned on him being kind. Kindness was dangerous. It made her want to trust, to confide, to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could find a place here. But trust had betrayed her before, and she would not make that mistake again. The baby moved beneath her hand, a flutter of life that still amazed and terrified her in equal measure. She had no idea how to be a mother, no idea how she would manage once the child arrived. But she would figure it out. She had to. This baby was all she had left in the world, the only good thing to come from her disastrous marriage. For now, she would work as hard as she could, prove her value, and hope that when the truth became unavoidable, Ryder Thompson would be merciful enough to let her stay. Morning came early on a ranch. Ryder was up before dawn, tending to the horses and checking on the cattle in the near pastures. When he returned to the house, the smell of coffee greeted him, rich and strong. He found Martha in the kitchen, already dressed in a fresh calico dress of gray that somehow made her eyes look even more striking. She had an apron tied around her waist, and she was working at the stove with efficient movements. "Good morning," Ryder said, surprised by how welcome the scene felt. How long had it been since he had come in from morning chores to find breakfast cooking and coffee ready? "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. I hope you do not mind that I started without instruction. I thought you might appreciate a hot meal." "I appreciate it very much." He washed his hands at the pump and sat at the table watching her work. She moved well in the kitchen, comfortable and skilled. "And please call me Ryder. Mr. Thompson was my father." She hesitated, then nodded. "Very well, and you may call me Martha." "Martha it is, then." She served him eggs and biscuits, bacon fried crisp, and more of that excellent coffee. Ryder could not remember the last time he had eaten so well. His own cooking ran to beans and hardtack, with the occasional piece of meat when he remembered to shoot something or butcher a chicken. "This is delicious," he said honestly. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My mother insisted on teaching me properly despite our circumstances." A shadow crossed her face. She believed a woman should be capable in all domestic arts, regardless of social position. "Your family was well off then," Ryder ventured carefully. "Once." She turned back to the stove, her posture stiffening. "That was a long time ago." He let it drop, focusing on his breakfast. They ate in companionable silence, and afterward, Martha insisted on cleaning up while Ryder outlined the general routine of the household. She listened carefully, asking occasional questions, her intelligence evident in the way she grasped the scope of the work. The days fell into a pattern. Ryder worked the ranch from dawn until dusk, mending fences, tending cattle, breaking horses, and handling the 1,000 other tasks that came with running a large operation. Martha transformed the house, cleaning and organizing with a thoroughness that amazed him. She cooked meals that made him look forward to coming inside, and she maintained the kitchen garden with surprising skill. They spoke little at first, their conversations limited to practical matters. But gradually, as the weeks passed, the silences between them grew more comfortable. Ryder found himself lingering over breakfast, sharing stories about the ranch and the territory. Martha remained guarded about her past, but she opened up about smaller things. Her love of reading, though she had been forced to leave most of her books behind. Her skill with a needle, evident in the mending she did on his worn shirts. Her surprising knowledge of herbal remedies, learned from a grandmother who had been considered eccentric. August brought intense heat and the constant threat of wildfires. Ryder spent long days creating fire breaks and watching the sky for smoke. Martha kept the house cool with drawn curtains and wet cloths hung in doorways, and she prepared meals that did not require heating the house unbearably. It was during one particularly brutal afternoon, when Ryder came in early due to heat exhaustion in one of his horses, that he noticed the change in Martha's appearance. She stood at the kitchen counter, her back to him, and the curve of her belly was unmistakable beneath her dress. She had stopped wearing the tight corset, he realized, and without it, the truth was obvious. She must have sensed his presence because she turned, and their eyes met. The fear in her expression hit him like a physical blow. She raised her chin, defiant despite the terror he could see beneath. "I am with child," she said flatly. "Due in late November or early December. If you want me to leave, I will understand, though I would appreciate a few days to make arrangements." Ryder stood frozen, processing this revelation. So many things suddenly made sense. Her desperation, her careful movements, the protective gestures he had noticed but not understood. She was not just fleeing poverty or scandal. She was pregnant and alone, seeking refuge in the only place desperate enough to take her without questions. "Where is the father?" he asked quietly. "Dead, shot 3 months before I arrived here. And your family disowned me." Her voice remained steady, but he saw her hands clench. "I have no one, nowhere else to go, but I will not burden you with my troubles. I have saved most of my wages. I can find somewhere." "Where?" Ryder challenged gently. "Where would you go, pregnant and alone? What kind of work could you find? What kind of place would take you in?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. "That is not your concern." "Is not it?" He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "Martha, you have worked harder than any person I have ever hired. You have made this house a home again. You have asked for nothing beyond what was agreed. Why would I send you away for being in a difficult situation not of your making? Because respectable people do not harbor unwed mothers." "Are you married or not?" Ryder asked, confused. "I was married. Briefly. But Thomas died before most people knew about the wedding, and my family has made it clear they consider the marriage invalid due to their lack of consent. So in the eyes of society, I am an unwed mother and a fallen woman." Ryder processed this, his mind working through the implications. "But you are legally a widow." "Technically, yes." "Then that is what you are. A widow carrying her late husband's child. That is the truth, is not it?" "Yes, but no buts." His voice was firm. "You are Martha Parker, widow, employed as housekeeper at the Thompson ranch. When the child comes, we will figure it out. You can continue working if you want or focus on the baby. I will not turn you out for this." The tears fell then, streaming down her face despite her efforts to contain them. "Why would you do this for me? You do not know me. I could be anyone, anything. I know you are a woman in trouble who needs help. That is enough." He pulled out a chair. "Sit down before you fall down. You look exhausted." She obeyed, sinking into the chair as if her legs could no longer hold her. Ryder poured her a glass of water from the pitcher she kept cool in the root cellar, and she drank it gratefully. "I will earn my keep," she said fiercely. "I will work twice as hard. I will not be a charity case." "You have never been a charity case. You are the best help I have ever had." He sat across from her, choosing his words carefully. "Martha, life out here is hard, unforgiving, but it is also simple in some ways. What matters is survival, hard work, and basic decency. Your past, your circumstances, those are your business. What matters to me is that you are honest, capable, and willing to pull your weight. You have proven all of that already." She studied him, those gray eyes searching for deception or hidden motives. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded slowly. "Thank you, Ryder. You cannot know what this means." "Rest this afternoon," he said, standing. "It is too hot to work anyway. I am going to take it easy myself, maybe do some bookwork in the office." Over the following weeks, something shifted between them. With her secret revealed and accepted, Martha seemed to relax incrementally. She still worked tirelessly, but she also allowed herself small moments of rest. She sat on the porch in the evenings while Ryder did his accounts, and they talked about inconsequential things. The weather, the price of cattle, the territorial politics that seemed increasingly unstable. Ryder found himself watching her when she did not notice, fascinated by the way she moved with her hand resting on her growing belly, the soft expression that crossed her face when the baby kicked. He had never given much thought to children before, but seeing Martha carry this life, he began to imagine what it might be like to have a family of his own. The realization that he was developing feelings for her came gradually, like the slow change of seasons. It started with appreciation for her skills and respect for her courage. It grew into admiration for her strength and compassion for her situation. And somewhere along the way, it transformed into something deeper, warmer, something that made his heart race when she smiled at him across the breakfast table. He told himself it was foolish. She was vulnerable, dependent on him for shelter. Any feelings she might develop would be suspect, born of gratitude rather than genuine affection. He would not take advantage of her situation, no matter how much he longed to tell her that she had become the brightest part of his days. September brought cooler weather and the fall roundup. Ryder hired 3 temporary hands from town, rough men but good workers. Martha fed them without complaint, though Ryder noticed how she avoided being alone with any of them. He made sure to keep a close eye on the bunkhouse, and he made it abundantly clear to the men that his housekeeper was under his protection. One of the hands, a drifter named Jake, made the mistake of commenting on Martha's condition within Ryder's hearing. "Must be nice having a woman around, even a used one," he sneered to his companions. Ryder had him packed and off the property within the hour, with a warning that if he spread gossip in town, he would answer for it personally. The other 2 hands got the message and treated Martha with careful respect thereafter. Martha said nothing about the incident, but that evening she sought him out on the porch. "You did not have to fire him. I am used to such comments." "Well, you should not be," Ryder said, his anger still simmering. "And you will not tolerate them on my property. This is your home now, Martha. You deserve respect here." She sat beside him, closer than she usually did. "Why are you so kind to me, Ryder? And please do not say it is simple decency." "You go beyond that, and we both know it." He considered lying, but what was the point? "Because I have come to care about you. Your well-being matters to me." "I care about you too," she said softly, "but I worry about what that means. I am not in a position to have expectations or make demands." "Everything I have you have given me." "That is not true. You have earned every bit of what you have here." He turned to face her, taking in the loveliness of her face in the fading light. "Martha, I am not asking for anything from you. I just want you to know that you are valued here. For yourself, not just for what you do." She reached out and took his hand, her fingers small and delicate in his work-roughened palm. "I was so afraid when I came here, afraid you would discover my secret and cast me out, afraid I would have my baby alone somewhere with no help. But you have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. You have given me something too," Ryder admitted. "A reason to come home at night instead of just a place to sleep." They sat together as the stars emerged, hands linked, speaking in quiet voices about everything and nothing. It was not a declaration of love, not yet, but it was a beginning. A fragile bridge being built between 2 lonely souls who had found unexpected solace in each other. October painted the high country in gold and crimson, and Martha's belly grew rounder. She moved more slowly now, tiring more easily, though she refused to stop working entirely. Ryder hired a woman from town, Mrs. Chen, whose husband worked in the mines, to come out twice a week to help with the heavier housework. Martha protested at first, insisting she could manage, but Mrs. Chen's brisk competence and complete lack of judgment won her over. Mrs. Chen, a Chinese immigrant who had faced her own share of prejudice and hardship, treated Martha's situation as entirely unremarkable. "Babies come when they come," she said practically. "You need help, I help. Simple." Through Mrs. Chen, Ryder arranged for the town doctor to visit the ranch. Dr. Samuel Morrison was an older man, gruff but competent, who had seen every kind of case the frontier could produce. He examined Martha and pronounced her healthy, though he cautioned that she was smaller than ideal for childbearing. "You will need help when the time comes," he told Ryder bluntly. "I can attend if the weather permits, but November and December can bring snow that makes the roads impassable." Best to have a backup plan. Mrs. Chen volunteered to stay at the ranch when Martha's time grew close, and her daughter, who had assisted at several births, would come as well. Ryder agreed to all of it, determined that Martha would have the best care possible. As the due date approached, Ryder found himself increasingly anxious. He read everything he could find about childbirth, which was not much and mostly terrifying. Women died in childbirth all the time, especially out here far from proper medical care. The thought of losing Martha, of her suffering, haunted his dreams. One evening in early November, with the first real cold snap sending everyone close to the fires, Martha found Ryder staring into the flames in the main room, his expression troubled. "What is wrong?" she asked, settling into the chair beside him with the careful movements of late pregnancy. "I am worried about you," he admitted. "About the birth, about what could go wrong." "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," Martha said gently. "I will be fine." "You do not know that. Anything could happen." She reached over and took his hand, guiding it to her belly where the baby was active. Ryder felt the strong kick against his palm and looked up at her in wonder. "Feel that?" Martha smiled. "That is a strong, healthy baby, and I am stronger than I look. I did not come all this way, survive everything I have survived just to give up now." "You are the bravest person I know," Ryder said, meaning it absolutely. "I am terrified," she confessed, "but I am also ready to meet this child, ready to start the next chapter of my life. And Ryder, I want you to know something. Whatever happens, you have already given me so much. You have given me safety, respect, and friendship. You have given me hope for the future. I need you to know how much that means. Martha." He moved to kneel beside her chair, still holding her hand against the swell of her belly. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it without feeling obligated to respond in any way. I have fallen in love with you. Completely, irrevocably in love with you. Not because you work for me, not because you need my help, but because you are the most remarkable woman I have ever known. Your strength, your kindness, your courage, they have captured my heart entirely." Tears streamed down her face, catching the firelight. "Oh, Ryder. I have been trying so hard not to love you, because I thought it would be unfair to you, to burden you with my feelings when you have already done so much. But I do love you. I love your gentleness and your strength. I love the way you care for your animals and your land. I love your integrity and your kindness. I love you so much it frightens me." He reached up to cup her face, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "Then marry me. Not because you need protection or security, though I will always give you both. Marry me because we love each other, because we have built something real here. Marry me and let me be a father to this child, not just in name but in every way that matters." "Are you certain?" Martha asked, searching his face. "Once people know, there will be talk. Speculation about the baby, about us. It could damage your reputation. Let them talk. I have never cared much about what people thought anyway." He smiled. "Besides, we can tell them the truth, that I fell in love with my housekeeper and convinced her to marry me before her child was born. Let them make of that what they will." She laughed through her tears. "You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Do you love me? Yes. Do you want to build a life with me, more than anything? Then that is all that matters." He kissed her then, gently, reverently, pouring all his love and promise into that single sweet contact. They were married 3 days later in Clifton, with Dr. Morrison and Mrs. Chen as witnesses. Martha wore a dress she had sewn herself from fabric Ryder bought at the general store, a deep green that complemented her coloring beautifully. Ryder wore his best suit, saved from his father's belongings and carefully brushed clean. The preacher, a circuit rider named Reverend Walsh who served several small communities, asked no awkward questions. He had seen enough of frontier life to know that people's stories were often complicated, and what mattered was their commitment going forward. Do you, Ryder Thompson, take Martha Parker to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. Ryder's voice rang clear and strong. And do you, Martha Parker, take Ryder Thompson to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. Martha's voice trembled with emotion but carried conviction. Then, by the power vested in me by the territory of Arizona and the grace of God, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Ryder did, tenderly, aware of her delicate condition but unable to hide the joy that flooded through him. When they parted, Martha was smiling through tears, more beautiful than he had ever seen her. They celebrated with a simple meal at the hotel restaurant, then made the journey back to the ranch in the gathering twilight. Everything felt different now, charged with new meaning. This was their home, not his home where she worked. This was the beginning of their life together. That night, Ryder carried her bags to the master bedroom, the large room on the second floor that had been his parents' and then his alone. Martha stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. I do not expect anything, Ryder said quickly. Not with the baby so close. I just want you comfortable, and this room is larger, warmer. I want to be here, Martha said softly, with you, as your wife, in every way that is safe and possible. They came together carefully, mindful of her condition, but with a tenderness that transcended the physical. Ryder had never felt so complete, so utterly at peace, as he did holding Martha in his arms that night, feeling their child moving between them. Thank you, Martha whispered into the darkness, for saving me. You saved me too, Ryder replied. I just did not know I needed saving until you arrived. The baby came 2 weeks later, on a cold November night with snow threatening in the heavy clouds overhead. Martha's labor started in the afternoon, and by the time Ryder sent for Mrs. Chen and her daughter, the pains were coming strong and regular. Dr. Morrison made it just before the snow began to fall in earnest, and he took charge with calm efficiency. Ryder was banished from the bedroom, left to pace the main room while Martha's cries filtered down through the floorboards. Each cry tore at him, made him want to burst through the door and somehow share her pain. But he could only wait, pray, and trust that the women tending her knew what they were doing. The labor lasted through the night and into the early morning hours. Ryder had never known time could move so slowly, each minute an eternity of worry and helplessness. Finally, as dawn painted the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold, he heard a new sound. A baby's cry, thin and indignant, declaring its arrival to the world. Dr. Morrison appeared at the top of the stairs, looking tired but satisfied. You have a son, Mr. Thompson. A healthy boy, good lungs on him, and your wife came through beautifully. She is asking for you. Ryder took the stairs 2 at a time. He found Martha propped up in bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a small bundle wrapped in clean blankets. Mrs. Chen and her daughter were cleaning up, efficient and unobtrusive, but Ryder had eyes only for his wife and the child in her arms. Come meet your son, Martha said, her voice hoarse but filled with wonder. Ryder approached slowly, reverently, and looked down at the tiny face peeking out from the blankets. The baby had a cap of dark hair, and when his eyes fluttered open, they were the same gray as his mother's. He was perfect, absolutely perfect, and Ryder felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. Can I hold him? He asked. Martha transferred the baby carefully, and Ryder cradled his son with surprising confidence for someone who had never held an infant before. The baby weighed almost nothing, but the responsibility of this small life felt enormous and right. "What should we name him?" Martha asked. "What about James, after my father, James Robert Thompson?" "James Robert Thompson." Martha tested the name. "I like it, Jamie for short." "Hello, Jamie," Ryder said softly to the baby. "Welcome to your home." The first weeks of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Jamie was a good baby overall, but he needed feeding every few hours, day and night. Martha recovered her strength slowly, and Ryder found himself learning skills he never imagined needing. He changed diapers, walked the floor with a fussy baby, and marveled at the tiny fingernails and the way Jamie would grip his finger with surprising strength. Mrs. Chen came often during those first weeks, helping with the housework and cooking, teaching both Ryder and Martha the practical skills of infant care. Her daughter showed Martha how to nurse successfully, how to soothe a colicky baby, how to read the different cries. As winter settled over the ranch in earnest, they became a family contained in their own small world. The snow fell heavily, sometimes cutting them off from town for days at a time. But the house was warm, the pantry was well stocked, and the three of them created their own routines and rhythms. Ryder had never been happier. He would come in from the cold after tending the animals to find Martha nursing Jamie by the fire, humming softly, and his heart would swell with love so intense it was almost painful. This was what he had been missing all those lonely years, this sense of purpose and connection and family. On Christmas Eve, with snow falling softly outside and Jamie sleeping peacefully in the cradle Ryder had made, they sat together by the fire. "Last Christmas I was alone in St. Louis," Martha said quietly, "convinced my life was over, that I had ruined everything. I could not have imagined this, any of this." "Last Christmas I was alone here," Ryder replied, going through the motions, wondering if this was all there would ever be. "And now I cannot imagine life without you and Jamie. I love you, Ryder Thompson. I love you, Martha Thompson." They kissed, sweet and lingering, the firelight casting dancing shadows around them. From his cradle, Jamie made a small sound and they both smiled. "He is going to be spoiled rotten," Martha said fondly. "Absolutely," Ryder agreed. "What is the point of having a son if you cannot spoil him?" Winter gave way to spring, and Jamie grew from a tiny infant into a chubby, alert baby who smiled at everything and everyone. The ranch work picked up with the warmer weather, and Martha gradually resumed her household duties, carrying Jamie in a sling Mrs. Chen had shown her how to make. Ryder hired hands again for the spring branding, and this time when they saw Martha with the baby, they saw a rancher's wife and child, a proper family. Any gossip about the timing of the marriage had died down, helped by Ryder's hard stare and the general acceptance that what happened on a man's ranch was his own business. In May, they made the trip to town for Jamie's christening. Reverend Walsh performed the ceremony, with Mrs. Chen and Dr. Morrison standing as godparents. Jamie howled through the whole thing, not appreciating the water sprinkled on his head, and the congregation chuckled with the fond tolerance people always showed for babies. Afterward, at the small reception Martha had organized, several of the town's women approached her with tentative friendship. The banker's wife, Mrs. Adelaide Foster, was particularly warm. "I am so glad you have settled here," she told Martha. "We need more respectable families in Clifton. Perhaps you could join Our Lady's Society. We meet twice monthly to work on charitable projects." Martha glanced at Ryder, who nodded encouragingly. "I would like that very much." It was a beginning, Ryder thought. Martha's integration into the community, her acceptance as his wife and Jamie's mother, The past was truly behind them now, and the future stretched ahead full of promise. That summer brought good rains, and the ranch prospered. The grass grew thick and green, the cattle fattened, and Ryder was able to purchase additional breeding stock. He hired 2 permanent hands, young men from town who proved reliable and hardworking. With help, he could spend more time with his family, and he treasured every moment. Jamie learned to sit up, then to crawl, and finally, just before his first birthday, to take his first wobbling steps. Ryder was in the barn when it happened, and Martha came running to get him, her face flushed with excitement. "Come quick! Jamie is walking." They stood together in the main room, watching their son toddle from the sofa to the chair with intense concentration and occasional plops onto his well-padded bottom. Pride and joy mingled in Ryder's chest. "He is going to be into everything now," Martha said, laughing. "We will manage." "We always do." That night, after Jamie was asleep, they made love with the easy familiarity of a couple who had learned each other's bodies and hearts. Afterward, Martha rested her head on Ryder's chest, tracing patterns on his skin. "I want to give Jamie a brother or sister," she said softly. "I know it is soon, but I hate the thought of him growing up alone the way I did." "I would love that," Ryder replied. "I always wished I had more siblings. A house full of children sounds perfect." 3 months later, Martha told him she was expecting again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, without the stress and fear that had marked Jamie's gestation. Martha bloomed with health, and Jamie seemed to sense something was different, becoming extra gentle when he climbed on her lap. Their daughter arrived in the summer, during a thunderstorm that shook the house and lit the sky with spectacular lightning. The labor was shorter this time, and when Dr. Morrison placed the squalling baby in Ryder's arms, he fell in love all over again. "She is beautiful," he whispered, studying the tiny face. "Just like her mother." They named her Rose Marie after both grandmothers. She had Martha's blonde hair and Ryder's dark eyes, and from the beginning her personality was different from Jamie's. Where he had been placid and easy, Rose was demanding and dramatic, letting everyone know immediately if she was unhappy. "She is going to keep us on our toes," Martha said, amused and exhausted. "Good," Ryder replied. "Life would be boring otherwise." With 2 young children, the house was never quiet. Jamie toddled around, getting into everything, while Rose demanded constant attention. But it was a good chaos, the chaos of a family growing and thriving. The years passed in a blur of small moments that built into a life. Jamie's first day helping Ryder with the horses, so proud in his child-sized hat. Rose learning to walk and immediately trying to run. The Christmas when Jamie got his first pony and spent all day riding in circles in the yard. The summer Rose decided she wanted to help in the kitchen and created such a flowery mess that Martha laughed until she cried. They added on to the house, creating more bedrooms for the growing family. Ryder expanded the herd, buying more land from a neighbor who was retiring. The ranch became one of the most successful operations in the territory, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Martha became a pillar of the Clifton community, leading charitable efforts and teaching Sunday school. She never forgot her own time of desperation, and she made sure that any woman or family in need found help. The house always had room for one more at the table, and Martha's compassion touched many lives. When Jamie turned 5, they hired a tutor to come to the ranch 3 days a week. Education mattered to both Ryder and Martha, and they were determined their children would have opportunities they themselves had lacked. Jamie proved a quick study, especially with numbers, while Rose showed an early talent for reading and storytelling. More children followed. Another boy, Thomas, named for Martha's late first husband in a gesture of healing and closure. twin girls, Sarah and Catherine, who looked so alike that only their parents could tell them apart. Each addition to the family felt like a gift, another thread in the rich tapestry of their life together. The ranch hands came and went over the years, but the core remained stable. Two of the original hands married and built cabins on the property, starting their own families. The Thompson Ranch became a community unto itself, a place where hard work was valued and loyalty rewarded. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ryder took Martha back to Clifton for a special dinner at the hotel, leaving the children with Mrs. Chen, who had become like family over the years. They dressed in their finest clothes and enjoyed a meal without interruptions, talking and laughing like the young couple they had been. "You ever regret it?" Ryder asked as they walked back to the wagon under a sky full of stars, taking a chance on a lonely rancher and a remote ranch. "Never," Martha said firmly. "Coming here, meeting you, building this life, it is the best thing that ever happened to me. You and the children, you are everything." "You saved me, you know," Ryder said, pulling her close. "I was existing, not living. You taught me the difference." "We saved each other," Martha corrected. "That is what love does." They kissed beneath the stars, and Ryder marveled again at his good fortune. The lonely rancher who had placed an advertisement had received so much more than a housekeeper. He had found his soulmate, his partner, the mother of his children, and his best friend. As they drove home through the moonlit landscape, the ranch came into view, lights glowing warm and welcoming. The children would be asleep by now, tumbled together in their beds like puppies. Mrs. Chen would be dozing by the fire, waiting for their return. Home, Ryder thought. Not just a place, but a feeling, a state of being that encompassed everyone and everything he loved. The years continued to unfold with their mixture of joy and challenge. Droughts came, but they weathered them. Cattle prices fluctuated, but the ranch remained solvent. The children grew, each developing their own personalities and dreams. Jamie showed a natural talent for ranching and an easy way with animals. Rose proved to be creative and artistic, always drawing or making up elaborate stories. Thomas was the peacemaker, gentle and thoughtful. The twins were adventurous and fearless, always into some kind of mischief. As Arizona moved toward statehood, the wild nature of the territory began to fade. Law and order became more established. The railroad expanded, bringing easier access to markets and goods. The Thompsons adapted with the times, always looking forward while honoring the past. When Jamie turned 18, he asked to take on more responsibility with the ranch operations. Ryder agreed readily, proud of the young man his son had become. Together, they implemented new breeding programs and expanded into new markets. The ranch continued to grow and prosper under their combined management. Rose surprised everyone by announcing her intention to become a teacher. Martha supported her completely, helping her prepare for the examination and celebrating when she passed. Rose took a position at the Clifton School, bringing her creative teaching methods to the next generation. The younger children were still at home, filling the house with energy and laughter. Thomas helped with the ranch work, but showed an interest in medicine that led Ryder and Martha to arrange for him to study with Dr. Morrison, who was getting on in years and looking for someone to eventually take over his practice. The twins, at 12, were still too young to have settled on their futures, but they threw themselves into everything with enthusiasm. They helped their mother with her charitable work, learned ranching from their father and brother, and generally made sure life was never dull. On a warm evening in late spring, with the family gathered for Sunday dinner, Ryder looked around the crowded table and felt overwhelming gratitude. Martha sat at the other end, her hair now threaded with silver but her face still lovely, still the woman who had arrived on that riverboat so many years ago. Jamie was discussing cattle, breeding with quiet authority. Rose was telling a funny story from her classroom. Thomas was deep in conversation with Dr. Morrison, who had become a regular dinner guest. The twins were giggling over some private joke. This was legacy, Ryder thought. Not just the land or the cattle or the buildings, but this family, these relationships, this love that had grown from a simple advertisement and a desperate woman's hope. Whatever happened in the years to come, they had built something that would endure. Later, as he and Martha sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, she leaned against him with a contented sigh. "We did well," she said softly. "We did very well," Ryder agreed. "You remember the day I arrived, how terrified I was? I remember thinking you looked like you might bolt back onto that riverboat at any moment." Martha laughed. "I almost did, but something about you made me stay. Something about the way you looked at me, like I was a person, not a problem or a scandal." "You were never a problem," Ryder said, kissing the top of her head. "You were an answer to a prayer I did not even know I had prayed." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to emerge, the same stars that had watched over them through all their years together. From inside the house came the sounds of their children, the ordinary chaos of a large family settling in for the evening. "I love you," Martha said, as she had said countless times over the years, but it never got old, never lost its power. "I love you too," Ryder replied, meaning it with every fiber of his being. The future stretched ahead, unknown but no longer frightening. They would face it together as they had faced everything else. The lonely rancher and the woman from the riverboat, who had each been hiding something beautiful inside their hearts, waiting for the right person to help it bloom. Their love story was not dramatic in the way of novels, with grand gestures and sweeping declarations. It was built on quieter things. Morning coffee shared in comfortable silence, hands clasped during difficult times, laughter over small domestic disasters, the daily choice to love and be loved, to build something together that was greater than either could have created alone. As the years turned into decades, they watched their children marry and have children of their own. The ranch expanded to include the next generation, with Jamie taking over the primary management while Ryder transitioned to an advisory role. Rose married a fellow teacher and raised her family in town but visited often. Thomas became the territory's finest doctor, taking over Dr. Morrison's practice and expanding it. The twins each found their own paths, one becoming a teacher like Rose, the other partnering with Jamie in ranch management. The house that had once echoed with emptiness now rang with grandchildren's laughter. Holiday gatherings required multiple tables and careful coordination. The family tree that Martha carefully maintained in the family Bible showed the fruit of their union spreading across the territory. When Ryder turned 60, the whole family gathered for a celebration. 3 generations crowded into the expanded ranch house, spilling out onto the porch and yard. As Ryder stood before them, Martha at his side, he struggled to find words adequate to express his feelings. "Family," he began, his voice rough with emotion, "is not just about blood. It is about choice. The choice to love, to support, to build together. 50 years ago, I was a lonely man running this ranch by myself, convinced that was all life held for me. Then a brave woman stepped off a riverboat and everything changed." He turned to Martha, taking her hand. "You changed everything. You brought love and laughter and purpose. You gave me children and grandchildren. You made this house a home. Every good thing in my life flows from the day you arrived." Martha's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "And you gave me a safe harbor when I desperately needed one. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You claimed my child as your own and gave me more children than I ever dreamed possible. You are the great love of my life, Ryder Thompson, and I would make the same choice 1,000 times over." They kissed, and the family erupted in cheers and applause. Jamie raised his glass. "To Ma and Pa, the foundation of everything we are." "To Ma and Pa," the room echoed. As the party continued around them, Ryder and Martha slipped away to the porch, seeking a moment of quiet. They sat in the same chairs they had sat in for decades, looking out over the land they had built their life upon. "We have been blessed," Martha said softly. "Beyond measure," Ryder agreed. "You think they understand? The children, the grandchildren, how precious this is, what we have built." "They will," Ryder said with confidence. "Maybe not now, but someday, when they have their own stories and struggles, they will understand that love is not just a feeling but a series of choices, made new every day." A few more years passed in the gentle rhythm of older age. The work of the ranch fell to younger shoulders, but Ryder still rode out most days, checking on things, unable to fully relinquish the land he had loved for so long. Martha's charitable work continued, though she moved more slowly now, accepting help more readily. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with another large gathering. The whole territory seemed to turn out, testament to the impact they had made through decades of generosity and community involvement. The territorial governor sent a letter of congratulations. The newspaper ran a feature story about the Thompson family and their contribution to Arizona's development. Through it all, Ryder and Martha remained focused on what mattered: each other, their family, the simple daily pleasures of a life well lived. Morning coffee on the porch. Evening walks when the heat broke, grandchildren climbing into their laps for stories. The deep contentment of being exactly where they belonged. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Martha paused in brushing her hair. "Ryder, do you ever think about that advertisement you placed? How different our lives would have been if I had not seen it, or if I had not been brave enough to answer." "I try not to," Ryder admitted. "It is too frightening, imagining a life without you. I think about it sometimes, how close I came to giving up entirely. If I had not seen that advertisement, if I had not had just enough courage left to answer it, I do not know what would have become of me and Jamie. But you did see it, and you did answer it, and here we are." Ryder came to stand behind her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. 50 years later, still in love, surrounded by family, with a lifetime of memories and love between us. "Here we are," Martha echoed, leaning back against him. They climbed into bed, fitting together as naturally as breathing, and fell asleep hand in hand as they had done for 50 years. The seasons continued their eternal cycle. Springs brought new calves and green grass. Summers brought heat and hard work. Falls brought roundup and harvest. Winters brought rest and family gatherings. Through it all, Ryder and Martha remained the steady center, the foundation upon which everything else was built. When Ryder turned 72, his health began to decline. Nothing dramatic, just the slow accumulation of a lifetime of hard work. His joints ached in the cold. His breath came shorter after exertion. Dr. Thomas, his son, monitored him carefully but could not stop the natural progression of age. Martha, a year younger but just as affected by time, refused to leave his side. They had been together for over 50 years, and she was not about to change that now. Jamie and his wife moved into the main house to help care for them, bringing the circle of life full turn. On a spring morning, with the scent of new grass drifting through the open windows, Ryder woke to find Martha already awake, watching him with those gray eyes that had captivated him from the first. "Good morning, love," she said softly. "Good morning." He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "How many mornings do you think we have woken up together?" "Thousands," Martha replied, "and each one a gift." "Each one a gift," Ryder repeated. "I would not change a single day, not even the hard ones. Especially not the hard ones. They taught us who we were, what we were capable of together." They lay quietly, hands clasped, listening to the house come alive around them, grandchildren running through the halls, the smell of breakfast cooking, the sounds of the ranch starting its daily routine. Life continuing as it always did. The years had been kind in their own way, giving them time, so much time to love and be loved. They had weathered every storm together, celebrated every joy together, and built a legacy that would outlive them both. As spring turned to summer and summer to fall, Ryder's health continued to decline. He spent more time in bed, though he insisted on being dressed and brought to the porch on good days. Martha never left him, reading to him, talking with him, simply being present. Their children and grandchildren visited constantly, filling the house with love and life. On a crisp October morning, with the aspens turning gold in the high country, Ryder woke knowing his time was short. He asked for Martha, though she was already there, had been there all night, holding his hand. "I am here," she whispered, "always here." "I need to say something," Ryder said, his voice weak but clear, "in case I have not said it enough." "You have said it plenty, my love." "Let me say it once more, then. Thank you. Thank you for seeing my advertisement. Thank you for being brave enough to answer it. Thank you for staying when it would have been easier to leave. Thank you for loving me, for giving me a family, for making my life so much richer than I ever imagined possible. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Martha Thompson." Tears streamed down Martha's face. "And you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You saved my life in every way that matters. I love you, Ryder. I will always love you." "I will wait for you," Ryder said softly. "Wherever I am going, I will wait for you." "It better be a long wait," Martha said fiercely. "I am not ready to let you go." He smiled, that slow smile that still made her heart flutter after all these years. Stubborn woman. Stubborn man. He closed his eyes, still holding her hand, and slipped away so peacefully that Martha almost did not realize he was gone. One moment he was there, the next he had moved on, leaving behind only the shell of the body she had loved for so long. The family gathered around, mourning and celebrating in equal measure. They had lost their patriarch, but what a life he had lived. What a legacy he had left. The ranch he had built, the family he had created, the community he had served, all stood as testament to a life well lived. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a view of the mountains he had loved. The whole territory came to pay respects, so many people that they overflowed the small cemetery. Story after story emerged of Ryder's kindness, his fairness, his integrity. He had touched more lives than even his family had realized. Martha stood at the graveside, supported by her children, and spoke the words her heart demanded. "Goodbye, my love. Thank you for every moment we shared. I will carry you with me until we meet again." She lived 7 more years, surrounded by family, active in the community, determined to honor Ryder's memory by continuing the work they had started together. The ranch prospered under Jamie's management. The grandchildren grew and married and had children of their own. The Thompson legacy continued to expand and flourish. But Martha counted the days until she could be reunited with the man who had been her partner, her love, her whole heart for over 50 years. When her own health began to fail, she faced it with the same courage she had shown in answering that advertisement so long ago. On a warm spring day, much like the day Ryder had died, Martha gathered her children around her bed. "Do not mourn too long," she told them. "Your father and I had a beautiful life, and you are the proof of that. Continue to love each other, to support each other, to build on what we started. That is the greatest gift you can give us." Jamie, now an old man himself, kissed his mother's hand. "We will, Ma, we promise. And tell your children and their children the story. How a lonely rancher placed an advertisement and a desperate woman answered it, and together they built all of this. Love, family, legacy. It all starts with courage and choice. We will tell it," Rose promised. "Every generation will know." Martha smiled, content. "Then I can rest easy." She closed her eyes, and in her mind she was young again, stepping off that riverboat in Clifton, seeing Ryder for the first time. His kind eyes, his gentle smile, the promise of safety and hope. She had been so afraid, hiding her pregnancy, terrified of rejection. But he had seen past her circumstances to the woman beneath, and he had offered her not just employment but love, family, belonging. In her final moments, Martha felt Ryder's presence, as real as if he stood beside her. She heard his voice, warm and welcoming. "Ready to come home, love?" "Always ready," she whispered. "I've been waiting for you." And then she was gone, reunited with her great love, her long wait over. The family buried Martha beside Ryder on that hill overlooking the ranch. Two simple headstones, side by side, marking the resting place of the couple who had built an empire of love. The inscriptions were simple but profound. Ryder Thompson, 1851–1923, beloved husband, father, and grandfather. He built a legacy of love. Martha Parker Thompson, 1857–1930, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She had the courage to answer. The ranch continued for generations, managed by Thompsons and their descendants, each adding their own chapter to the family story. The house was expanded and modernized, but never lost its essential character as a place of warmth and welcome. The hill where Ryder and Martha rested became a place of pilgrimage for the family, a reminder of where they came from and the love that had made it all possible. Jamie lived to see his own grandchildren grown, and before he died, he made sure the story was written down properly. He commissioned a family history, interviewing everyone who remembered Ryder and Martha, collecting letters and documents, creating a record that would outlast memory. In that history, the story was told in full. How Ryder, lonely and desperate for help, had placed an advertisement for a housekeeper. How Martha, pregnant and desperate for sanctuary, had answered it. How they had found in each other not just a solution to practical problems, but true love, the kind that transformed lives and created legacies. The history documented everything. Ryder's kindness in accepting Martha's pregnancy, their growing love through that first challenging year, the birth of Jamie and Ryder's acceptance of him as his true son, the marriage that had started as protection but became the foundation of everything, the children who followed, each loved and cherished, the building of the ranch into one of Arizona's most successful operations, the charitable work that touched countless lives, the deep, abiding love that sustained them through 50 years of marriage and beyond. But more than facts and dates, the history captured the essence of who they were. Ryder's quiet strength and unfailing integrity, Martha's courage and compassion. The partnership they formed, each making the other better, stronger, more complete. The love that had started as a fragile hope and grew into something unshakable. Future generations of Thompsons read that history and drew inspiration from it. During their own hard times, they remembered Ryder and Martha's perseverance. When facing difficult choices, they remembered the courage it took to answer an advertisement, to take a chance on love. When building their own families, they remembered the foundation of respect and genuine affection that had made the Thompson family strong. The ranch itself became a symbol in the territory, and later the state, of what could be built with hard work, integrity, and love. People pointed to it as an example of the best of Arizona, the pioneer spirit tempered with compassion and community-mindedness. And always, at the center of it all, was the story of the lonely rancher and the woman from the riverboat. How he had been looking for help and found love. How she had been seeking sanctuary and found home. How together they had created something that lasted far beyond their own lives, a legacy of love that would endure for generations. On the ranch, in the main house that had been expanded and renovated many times but never lost its essential character, the current generation of Thompsons gathered for Sunday dinners, just as Ryder and Martha had started so long ago. They sat at tables made from trees that had grown on the property, surrounded by photos of ancestors stretching back to that first wedding picture of Ryder and Martha, both looking young and hopeful and deeply in love. The youngest children would ask about the pictures, and their parents would tell the stories. About great-great-grandfather Ryder, who had built the ranch from nothing. About great-great-grandmother Martha, who had arrived with nothing but courage and hope. About the love that had brought them together and sustained them through everything life threw at them. And the children would absorb those stories, carrying them forward into their own lives. Another generation learning that love, real love, was not just about feelings but about choices. The choice to take a chance, the choice to be kind, the choice to see past circumstances to the person beneath, the choice to build something together that was greater than anything either could create alone. The advertisement that had started it all was framed and hung in the ranch office, its paper yellowed and fragile but the words still clear. Wanted, capable housekeeper and cook for remote ranch, must be able to handle isolation and hard work. Fair wages and separate quarters provided. Apply to Ryder Thompson, Clifton, Arizona territory. Below it, in a matching frame, was Martha's response, her elegant handwriting still legible despite the years. Dear Mr. Thompson, I am writing in response to your advertisement. I am experienced in all household arts and am willing to relocate for suitable employment. I can provide references and can be available immediately. Respectfully, Martha Parker. Such simple words to have set in motion something so profound, but that was the nature of life, was not it? The biggest moments often started with the smallest actions. An advertisement placed, a letter written, a choice made to answer, to go, to stay, to love, and from those small beginnings everything else had flowed. 5 children, 15 grandchildren, 32 great-grandchildren, and counting. A ranch that had grown from 3,000 acres to over 10,000. A family name that was respected throughout the state. A legacy of charitable works and community service. And at the heart of it all, a love story that had started with courage and grown into something that would last forever. As the sun set over the Arizona landscape, painting the sky in the same brilliant colors that had witnessed so many moments of the Thompson family's story, the current generation of Thompsons gathered on that same porch where Ryder and Martha had spent so many evenings. They watched the stars emerge, those eternal witnesses to human love and struggle and triumph, and they felt connected to something larger than themselves. They were part of a story that had started with a lonely rancher and a desperate woman, but had grown to encompass generations. They were the living proof that love, real love, could overcome any obstacle, heal any wound, create any future. They were the answer to the courage of their ancestors, the fruit of choices made long ago to trust, to hope, to love. And somewhere, in whatever realm souls inhabit after this life, Ryder and Martha watched over them all, together still as they had promised, their love story complete but never really ending. Because love like theirs did not end. It transformed, evolved, continued in the lives and hearts of everyone they had touched. The lonely rancher had found his partner. The desperate woman had found her home. And together, they had created something beautiful that would last forever, a testament to the transformative power of love, courage, and the simple choice to answer when hope calls.